Okay, the recording has begun.
All right, thank you. So it is June 12th, 2024, right about 2:06 p.m., meeting for our towing task force meeting. We'll go ahead and start with the roll call. I'll start with John Connolly.
Here.
Thanks, John. Captain Hahn. Haven't seen him yet. Jennifer Henson.
I'm here.
Thank you. Jim Howes. Haven't seen him yet. Dr. Pierce. Haven't seen him yet either. Officer Prunsky.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Rich actually just emailed me earlier today, said he wasn't going to make it. Jeffrey Reister. Haven't seen him yet. Nathan Riley, that's myself, I am present. Joyanne Rusha. I have not seen her yet. And Edward Schoenheit. Also have not seen him yet. So we'll see who shows up. I do have some administrative announcements to start with. So right now we got, looks like 4 members on the call, so not enough for a quorum. So we'll skip the approval of the meeting minutes on the agenda for now. We'll see if we have a quorum a little bit later. Moving on to our administrative items. Let's actually go ahead and start with the director of our copper department, Mr. Tobias. Do you want to go ahead and, I think you had a few words to say to the group?
Yeah, thanks, Nate. I just wanted to let you all know this will be the last meeting I'll be attending to observe you all. Wanted to thank you for letting me sort of lurk in the background the last few months. I really appreciate it. And finally, I've now reached out to everybody on the task force to try to schedule a time to talk about whether to continue or sunset the task force. So if I haven't spoken with you, or we haven't spoken, I should say, and you would still like to talk with me, please feel free to reach out to me. As soon as I'm done talking here, I'll drop my email address in the chat once again. But that's all. Just wanted to say thanks. Hope you all have a great summer. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Director Tobias. Appreciate that. So yeah, if you haven't connected with him yet to discuss the task force and his sunset review of this body, and you'd like to do so, please reach out to him. Definitely appreciate your interest in this body, Ms. Director Tobias. Okay, moving on to some of our other administrative updates. I know I've mentioned this the last couple of meetings. I'll mention it again. The OIT training, we're getting lots of pressure from our department to make sure the people in our group are doing that. It's pretty simple. I know I've mentioned that before. I took it last year, and it's pretty straightforward. I think it took like a half hour, so it's not a huge time commitment. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple in my opinion, but it hits on a lot of good points just got the in the chat box from Director Tobias. So there's his email address if you want to reach out to him. I would encourage you to do that. But anyway, back to the OIT training. Again, we're getting a lot of interest in that from our department to make sure that we're doing that. Again, it's kind of a larger scale initiative than just us. It's all the different boards and commissions in the department that are doing this. So they're really pushing to make sure everybody's doing it. Like I said, it's not a difficult training. You should have received an email from the department about this, within the past few months. If you haven't, or you lost it, or you just, want some fresh information about it, please reach out to Hadija. She can get you the information you need to make sure that you're doing that. Like I said, just please just take the time to do that, because again, we are getting a lot of pressure from the department to make sure our whole group has done it. So would just encourage everybody to do it. For those of you who may have done it last year, like I said, I took it last year. There's a new portal that's being used. I think it's being integrated into the overall department training portal that we use here for a variety of different employment related trainings. So it'll be different from last year if you took it last year. But again, if you need more information, please reach out to Hadija, because we're really getting a lot of emails, telling us to get this done. So definitely appreciate your help with that. At the end of our last meeting, or at least during our last meeting, we had spoken about, and I think it was Ms. Rusha's idea, to get essentially a copy of the PUC's towing rate sheet, or the current version of the towing rate sheet that the PUC puts out. and put it out in a way that's, reviewable, commentable, whatever format, so that everybody in this group can go in there and kind of, make comments or, whatever you want to do with it. You all should have received a link to that in your email. We did put that together probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. So again, you have the opportunity to go in there and, make whatever comments about, all the different categories of fees that the PUC allows that we've talked about recently, or even just the specific prices in these different categories, really whatever you want to talk about. Feel free to edit that document. It should be editable by just us. I went ahead and included our counsel, Mr. Roberts, on that as well, if he wants to weigh in, or at least keep track of what people are commenting on. So he has that access as well. But it's up on the website. Like, people can actually get to it through the website, so they can see that document. Again, we're all about transparency here at the Towing Task Force, so a lot of what we do and the documents we work on and stuff, we make accessible through the website. So yeah, just be aware of that. But yeah, it is accessible there, but really just the people in this group are the ones who actually have access to it and can play around with it and add comments or make edits or whatever you want to do. So anyway, that's available. I also want to talk about our new members. We actually had a couple of governor appointments since our last meeting. It's 2 individuals that have been appointed to the Towing Task Force, and they are Seth Thomas. He's going to be one of our 2 positions to represent communities that may be disproportionately affected by non-consensual towing. So that's Mr. Thomas will be handling that role. There's 2 roles in that category, so he'll be handling one of those roles. And then also Mike Padilla. He's the one who will be filling the role of an individual to represent an association of motor carriers that utilize towing services. So obviously the big association here in Colorado is the CMCA, the Colorado Motor Carriers Association. So they have recommended Mike Padilla to fill that role, and he has been appointed to that particular role as well. So I think we really pushed to get them in on this meeting, but like this all just happened very recently. So they may show up, they may not, but we hope they do, just so they can introduce themselves and be part of the group. So those are pretty much all the administrative updates I had. I did want to move on to kind of finishing up our conversation on our meeting schedule. I know we kind of hit at it at the end of our last meeting last month, and it felt like a quasi-rushed conversation. I think people were ready for the meeting to be over, so it felt a little rushed. But I wanted to kind of dive in here at the front end, just while people are fresh and we haven't gotten too deep into the topics yet. So we had hit on a couple issues, such as how frequently we want to meet. Are we meeting on the right dates or times? That's helpful to everybody's schedules, and promoting participation and all of that kind of stuff. So I did just kind of want to engage in that conversation a little bit further, just so we can kind of set our tone for the rest of the year. One of the other things, before we get into that part of the conversation, I know we had discussed skipping a couple months between now and the end of the year. And I think, at least from what I remember hearing, was that people were interested in skipping July, just because, again, it's right in the middle of the summer. People are traveling, people are taking time off, all that kind of stuff. So that was one. And then I think people had also discussed skipping December as well for a similar reason. How does everybody feel about that? Let's start there, and then let's move on to, kind of just our general frequency of meetings and dates and times. But does anybody have any comments on maybe taking a break for the month of July and also December, again, just considering the holidays and people are taking time off and all that? How does everybody feel about that? John?
Go with it.
Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts? Yeah, Officer Pronsky, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm good with that too.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I'm not really hearing a whole lot of pushback on that, and we got a couple voices of support. So let's go ahead and plan on that. Unless something changes, we'll go ahead and plan to skip our regular monthly meeting for the months of July and December. So we'll go ahead and factor that in, yeah, we'll take that into consideration and not book meetings on those 2 months. All right, moving on to the second half of the conversation. Again, just talking about, you know, what people are comfortable with from a scheduling perspective. You know, I know our standard is every month. I personally like every month. Again, I don't really feel like this is a huge, oh, looks like one of our new members is coming in. Hold on. All right, looks like we had someone else join us. Mr. Patia, are you there? Looks like you're muted if you're there. All right. Well, yeah, we'll continue our discussion. Mr. Badia, welcome, and we'd definitely like for you to introduce yourself to the group. You know, when you're ready to do that, and so we can properly welcome you. But yeah, moving on to our conversation regarding meeting scheduling. Again, I really don't think meeting once a month is a huge time commitment. So maybe it is more about when we're meeting or on which days we're meeting. Again, I'm definitely open to that conversation. You know, setting these meetings up on the second Wednesday of every month, that's kind of just a very you know, off the cuff decision that was made, you know, back in early 2022. I think that just kind of went with what people's schedules were at the time, but definitely open to changing that around if it works better for people and their schedules. So, you know, maybe meeting on Fridays is better, or maybe meeting in the morning instead of the afternoon is better. You know, I'm open to all of these ideas. So, but yeah, yeah, go ahead, John.
I think a lot of it's just content, right? So back then there was a lot more content, there was a little more media flashbang, and that's kind of where that drove that. And with now just kind of sitting and watching how the current system is working and just trying to collect data, there's not as much content to discuss. So I think that's where a lot of people are coming from with that.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't disagree. I mean, back in 2022, I mean, towing was at the forefront of everybody's mind, you know, in the media and the legislature. I mean, it was all over the place. And, you know, people definitely had a lot of, you know, interest, you know, both good and bad at that time. Not saying there isn't still interest. I mean, we definitely still see media stories, and obviously the legislature just passed another, you know, decently sized tow bill. So, you know, it is still on people's minds, and people still are still interested in this stuff. I mean, I still like the idea. We did admittedly meet our statutory obligation for putting that report together in late 2022, and that I think is also part of the reason that drove, you know, us to meet as frequently as we did, and, you know, put in all the work that we put into that report. And it was a good report, you know, that we put in back in November of 2022. I mean, I'd love to see us put together another report, you know, especially with some of the changes and some of the differences in the landscape in the towing industry that we're seeing, you know, now 2 years past HB 22-13-14. You know, we're starting to finally see some of the impact some of those changes have made to the industry. And so, like you said, John, I agree. You know, we definitely want to collect more data, and that's another thing that we're probably going to be able, as the Towing Task Force, to have access to once the provisions and statutes that were included in this most recent towing bill that the legislature passed, once those take effect, I think the PUC is going to be have a lot more access to relevant data regarding the towing industry. So I'm thinking back to the survey we did back in 2022 as part of our report, and some of the stuff we were asking about, some of the things we were asking for from the industry, like, how many trucks do you have? What size are they? What kind of volume do you have, on an annual basis for how many tows are you doing, and what types of tows, what categories are you engaged in? How are those percentaged out? Those are good data points. And I think we did the best we could, given that it was a voluntary survey. We had a decent amount of responses, but it still was less than 10% of the industry. Whereas I think the new standard that is going to be incorporated through this recent legislation will essentially allow for, at least the way they set it up, will allow for the PUC to collect it from 100% of carriers, licensed carriers anyway. So I think that will really help us out in the task force, in that we could potentially tap into that data that the PUC is going to be aggregating, and kind of utilize it for the purposes of this group. So I think that will help out. Obviously, it'll be a while before that happens. The statutes of the new tow bill admittedly do take effect probably sometime in August, it looks like. So similar to what we dealt with 2 years ago. But I do think it still will take a while to get that into rule. As you all know, the rulemakings are not short processes. And then even beyond that, it'll take a while to build up some of that data. So, we could be looking at, 2 years away or so from having usable data, kind of in a similar format to what we did for the survey 2 years ago. So it's something that's on the horizon, and we'll definitely look forward to that. It's just, so much has changed in the last 2 years, I feel like. And, we're still kind of trying to sort it all out, from a variety of different perspectives. But anyway, that was kind of my thought on that. So anyway, back to the point, on meeting frequency. Like I said, I'm happy to keep it at a once a month. Again, I don't think that's a huge time commitment. That's, 10 to 12 hours a year to commit to this body. I don't think that's asking too much from us. And so, I'm happy to keep it at that. But again, I'm absolutely open to, modifying the days we're meeting. So again, if everybody would prefer, every fourth Thursday instead of every second Wednesday, totally open to that conversation. I know Joyanne had talked about reducing the length of the meetings. They're typically, or historically, they've been scheduled for 2 hours. We don't always use the whole time, but it is time that we've designated for this. We did cut, admittedly, this meeting today down to an hour and a half, kind of to see how it worked. But I'm open to reducing the amount of time for each scheduled meeting as well. So anyway, I feel like I've talked a lot. So who else has some comments or thoughts to weigh in on this?
Hi, Nate. This is Mike Padilla. Sorry about that. Finally.
Mr. Padilla. Yeah, welcome. Glad to have you. Do you want to just, before you jump into the topic, do you want to just briefly introduce yourself to the group and just tell us who you are? And I've already told everybody which role you're filling, which is the somebody to represent an association of motor carriers that are utilizing towing services here in the state. So I've already explained that, but why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and your experience? That would be really helpful. Appreciate it.
Okay. Mike Padilla, Denver native here. Worked for the government for about 28 years. Once I get out of that into the private sector, worked for Denny Transportation for about 3.5 years, and then Cash Transportation. And then just recently I was with Western Distributing, and all those companies I was the safety director for all of them, and then was also in safety and compliance with the government. And now I'm at DG Coleman as their safety director here. So I do have a lot of experience as far as in the safety arena. As I was with Western, we did have our division heavy tow and recovery. So that kind of got me exposed with them, and And then also the quick clearance there on the I-70 corridor that we've been contracted with them for probably about 10 years or so. So I've been involved in that process too, and then just staying involved with the, process and some of the issues that we've had with some of the towing companies with Greg Fulton and then CMCA.
Great. Well, we're happy to have you. Did you have a comment on the subject we were just talking about?
No, sir, I didn't.
Okay, great. Well, we are happy to have you here. Definitely appreciate the governor making your appointment, and glad to have you join the group. Just real quick, Mr. Padilla, if you want to take a quick look, I'm actually going to link, in case you haven't already seen it, and maybe you have, but we do have a website that covers this group. I'm going to go ahead and link it in the chat here real quick, if you can hopefully see that. All right, so I just linked our website there, so you can go ahead and browse around. Hey, Hadija, can you make a note? We got to add Mr. Padilla to our list of members on the website. So anyway, but there's some good stuff in there. There's meeting recordings. We record every meeting that we do, so you can watch some of the old meetings if you're so inclined. You can look through, old agendas and minutes. You can look at the reports that we've done. There's some member training on there that you're probably going to need to do, and some other documents. There's some good stuff on there. So, feel free to peruse that, at your pleasure, and just kind of catch yourself up on where we are and what we're doing.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Great. All right. So did anybody else have any thoughts on our meeting structure? Again, we've just kind of done it the same way, since early 2022, with not very much deviation, but again, very, very much open to deviation if y'all think it would lead to, better efficiency and productivity and participation and all that. Definitely open to that if anybody has any thoughts.
I think it's going to be a quick meeting today, Nate.
Yeah, it's everybody's in their summer mode. I totally get that. It's definitely been busy lately, that's for sure. You'd think it'd slow down in the summer, it doesn't. So okay, well, we can circle back on that maybe a little bit later after we talk about some of these other topics on the agenda. But yeah, again, just so everybody knows, just so everybody understands, we're kind of responsible here over on this side, Hadija and I, to kind of set the meeting schedule and do it in a way, again, that maximizes everybody's time and participation and all of that. So just know, everybody, we are open to shifting things up from kind of what it has been these last couple of years. But yeah, just be aware of that. And again, we're always willing to make those changes. I think it's better to discuss those kind of things in an open format like this, because if you send out emails, then everybody's talking on top of each other, and it's just easier sometimes to just talk about it instead of email about it. So anyway, but yeah, definitely continue to be open to that moving forward. Let's go ahead and move on to, and I know we've talked about this a little bit, but I do want to, at least now that the tow bill, which is House Bill 24-1051, has actually passed and been signed by the governor at this point, I do think it's time for us to talk practically about how it impacts us, because it did make some changes to our statute. So again, we operate primarily under 40-10.1-403 is the statute, and they did make some changes. So I just wanted to kind of have a discussion about it, and how we're gonna be properly applying this. Again, these statutes are not currently effective. They won't become effective until, I don't know the specific day in August, but it'll be like kind of the first half of August. I'm guessing somewhere between August 5th and August 10th is my guess, is it somewhere in that range. So really, we don't have to worry about this until those statutes actually take effect. But I do think we got to prepare ourselves for that, especially considering if we're going to be skipping our July meeting. I think now is the appropriate time to talk about it. Mr. Roberts, have you had a chance to take a look at those specific changes to the 403 statute, including, how we can best accommodate for that, in our business dealings? I know we've kind of brushed up against it a little bit before, but again, I want to make sure we're all on the same page on kind of what our responsibilities are now with this new language regarding, limitations to voting and all that kind of stuff. Are you comfortable talking about that?
I am. Nate, can you hear me okay?
Go ahead.
Great. I'm on a sidewalk. So, if as far as the new bill, are you referring in specific to the quorum issue and whether people can recuse or something further than that?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's definitely part of it. And I think it is something we got to factor in, considering we do at times have quorum issues. But I think it's more on the voting aspect. I think that's probably the more prominent issue here that we need to make sure we're all clear on, to make sure we're not breaching that. And to be fair, they didn't really change a whole lot of the language in our statute, or at least the stuff that applies to us. They changed some stuff in this same statute that deals with stuff the PUC is doing, and that's for them to deal with. But I mean, there was enough here that they're changing that I think we should at least have the conversation and make sure we all understand, the new boundaries that this new language is establishing.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. You know I'm not prepared to talk about it right now because I think it may be a broader explanation than I was prepared for. So what I propose to do is put together kind of a rough outline, like a little paragraph or two about what's changed and where our lane is, so we can stay in it, and I could have that for us at the next meeting.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good plan. Let's go ahead and do that. In the meantime, I'll read the language just so everybody can see it, and I may even be able to put it in the chat. Yeah, hold on. Let me try to do that. Give me 1 second. That might be easier, just so we can talk about this a little more as a group. So really, I'm only hold on. All right. Copy and paste is being a little wonky. Give me 1 second. There we go. Okay, let me go ahead and put it in a different format. That'll look better in the chat. Give me 1 sec. That's not it.
I mean, to put it in just a quick black and white synopsis, it basically says that if a member can benefit from anything of it, you have to recuse yourself. I mean, so basically, if we're trying to set pricing on something that, say, my business does, I can't vote on it. But it also has the loophole if it's as you belong to a certain class, then it doesn't apply. So it's basically they're just getting to they don't want any towers making any decisions that can benefit themselves. That's pretty much how I take it.
Yeah, with that, John, thanks for that. That's a nice reminder about where the pitch point is. That I think that really firms up my suggestion of putting something in writing so that if we can reference it down the road instead of talking about it and bantering about it. I think a quick legal opinion on this makes some sense for the long run.
No, that's great, and I appreciate that, Mr. Roberts. And we'll look forward to that in our next meeting. So I pasted the language in the chat. So again, this is the specific language that applies to us as a group specifically. Again, they did make other changes to the 403 statute, but it's stuff that doesn't have to do with us. But what is here that I just pasted in the chat does have to do with us. So I'll just read it real quick, and then we can kind of jump into our conversation if we need to have more of a conversation about it. So it says a member shall notify the task force and abstain from voting if 1, the member will financially benefit from or has a financial interest in a person that will benefit from a rate setting recommendation made by the task force, or the task force is advising the commission about a complaint and the member is the subject of the complaint or has financial interest in a person that is subject of the complaint. And then hold on, there's another piece of it here. There's that. And this. Okay. So, and then the next part of it is it's kind of explaining it, I think, a little bit more, which I'm sure Mr. Roberts can help us with when he puts his opinion together, which is a member does not have a conflict of interest if the member benefits merely from belonging to a class that is affected by the rate setting described in subsection 3.5A1 of this section. So yeah, like John said, I think that is kind of more the simplest explanation is, you know, again, if you have financial interest that plays into, I think, this restriction. But there's also what might, and we'll see what Mr. Roberts comes up with, but there's something that might be a pretty broad exception to that that's written right in there. So again, I think as long as we all understand, you know, the boundaries, then it'll just make it easier to make sure that we're in keeping with the new statutory language. Ms. Ruscha, you want to jump in?
Hey, Mr. Riley. So I was just going to flag that, you know, like this rule written differently also exists for members of the legislature and general like ethics rules that apply to all elected officials in the state. And I wonder, I didn't pull it up, but I wonder if this language is very similar or almost a copy and paste, but, you know, transfer to us, because we'd have some guidance. You know, I think while I don't like the way how this was written, that was the intent. Like if something is so granular that you are, you know, more than just being a member of a class, you know, you have like this direct financial interest, then you should abstain. You know, if we were to suggest a rule or a change that is just so narrow, you know, that a specific member, you know, would be an outlier, then I think that's when you would recuse yourself, because that's sort of how it works at the legislature. But anyway, I just wanted to flag that like these guidelines are pretty standard. It might just be that the way it's written in statute for us is less clear. I don't know if that was stated before I got on the call, but that I kind of read that, you know, in a way that that's just sort of how I read it. And that's based on experience with other bodies in Colorado, whether it's state or local government.
Mm-hmm. John, did you have something else you wanted to say? Sorry, I heard something, but then it cut off. Okay. All right. Let's see. Yeah, thanks, Ms. Ruscha, for that additional context. Definitely appreciate that. Let's see. I think Mr. Connolly might have dropped off. I think he froze up for a second, but that's okay. Okay. Yeah. No, and I'll look forward to seeing Mr. Roberts' opinion on this, which I'm sure he'll have available to share at our next meeting in August. So he has plenty of time to put that together. But yeah, I'll look forward to that. Just again, I don't disagree that I think maybe this is something that we see in other areas of government in regards to conflicts of interest and things like that. And so I guess, yeah, like you said, I do think that maybe ours was just written a little less clear than maybe some of the other mechanisms found elsewhere in statute are. So, but that's okay. You know, we'll look forward to Mr. Roberts' explanation and just make sure we're all on the same page on that. Okay, I think we can go ahead and leave that be for now until we get Mr. Roberts' opinion. Moving on. hold on. Get somebody else jumping in. Okay. All right. Moving on yes, Mr. Connolly, go ahead.
Well, and just for the record, I have no issues recusing myself on anything, voting on prices or whatever. I mean, I have plenty of avenues outside of this body to bitch about that.
Fair enough. Okay. Thanks for that additional comment. Appreciate it. All right. Well, I think we can go ahead and move on in our agenda. So I also wanted to touch on, I know I mentioned this earlier during our administrative updates, but the PUC rate sheet, and I know Ms. Rusha, you had suggested that we put kind of a editable / commentable version of the PUC's current towing rate sheet for members of this body to kind of go in and, you know, provide comments or, you know, make edits or, you know, just kind of engage with the way things are currently set up now. You know, whether it's commenting on the specific categories that the PUC allows, or maybe even commenting on the specific prices that are in range as of right now, or in the past, that should be okay. And so we went ahead and put that together. Let me go ahead and I'm going to share my screen here for a second just to show you real quick. Oh, all right. Ms. Rusha shared, looks like the statutory designation for the conflict of interest for the legislature, which she was just speaking on. So thank you for providing that. So it looks like it's a 2021 version of that language. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, so this links to it's almost like an article. It looks like.
Yeah, if I could, Mr. Riley, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. That was a delayed reaction to what I was trying to say before. I was just dropping that in the chat because that was what I was thinking of, that statute. Like, I couldn't remember where it was in statute, and then I found that page. But Office of Legislative Services will write articles like this, kind of explainer and informer articles, and I happened to find that one, so I just dropped it in the chat. But I don't want to distract from this conversation, but and we'll wait for what council tells us. I was just noting that it's very, very similar. In fact, the language that you pasted is very similar to what's in the Constitution relative to our General Assembly, and that looks very, very broad as well.
Okay.
Obviously, members of the legislature are able to participate even, you know, when they have an interest in their professional background in legislating. So anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to distract you from the next item. It just took me a minute to paste that.
Yeah, no, it's good information. Yeah, and I don't disagree that, you know, I think you're right that, you know, the intent of most of this stuff is to take a very common sense approach. And I don't know that it always seems that way when you actually read the statutory language. It doesn't always seem very straightforward, but when you kind of look at it in kind of a broader context, I do agree that, you know, in a lot of cases, you know, when something's put in statute, it does kind of anticipate, or, you know, a common sense approach, you know, that you don't need to really, you know, go down the rabbit hole on some of this language. It can be just at face value, I think, most of the time. So, okay, cool. Well, thanks for that additional context. But anyway, as I was saying, you know, we went ahead and put together that rate sheet, which here I'll show you real quick. It's we circulated a link that it's what usually automatically gets sent out when we create a document and we share permissions with people. So like I said, the way we've set this document up is in a way where basically everybody as part of this group, including Mr. Roberts, can go in there and make changes and, you know, respond to comments or make your own comments, or, you know, whatever you want to do. But really anybody else looking at it would only be able to see it. Like, they wouldn't be able to mess with it or touch it or make changes or do anything like that. So that's the way I think we've set it up. Like I said, we sent you a link, so you should have a direct link to that document if you want to go in there and tinker around with it. But I also wanted to show everybody just very quickly how to get, if you lost the link or you just want another way to look at it, you can also get it through the website. So here's our Towing Task Force website, which again, I linked earlier for Mr. Padilla in the chat box. So again, this is where pretty much all of our information is housed. We put our links here for these meetings because again, they are open to the public. So we have the link here, you know, Hadijah's information here in case they want to reach out. There's a sign up form if people want to provide public comment. They don't have to fill that out, but we encourage it just so we kind of know who they are and what they want to talk to us about. It's got our statutory authority here, which I think is helpful. Our list of members, and again, Mr. Padilla will be adding you as well as our other new member to this here probably pretty soon. People who want to apply as well. We actually put a recruitment link here as well for when we've been recruiting over these past 6+ months. Links to all our meetings are here in meetings, our agendas and minutes. They all link to Google subfolders that have the documents, that have the recordings. So it's pretty easy to navigate all this stuff. But for specifically the rate sheet we've been talking about, you can find it over here. So here's our report from back in 2022. The link to the presentation for our annual training, which we did back in February this year, and we did it January a year prior to that. But under other documents, that's where it links to this subfolder. And again, you can see it. So it's got copy of like the survey that we did 2 years ago and some other things. But here's where we put that sheet. So it's available right here. And you can go in here and again, you can highlight something like you want to make a comment about drop charges. You can highlight it and make a comment, for example, and whatever you want to say, whatever input you want to provide. Now, again, this is a publicly facing document. You can see I just accessed it right through the website. Now I can access it because the way I'm accessing right now is reading off of my email. So the document recognizes that I have permissions. That's why I'm able to go in here and mess with it and add emojis or whatever I want to do. But for your regular person going on here, really they would only just be able to see the document. They're not going to be able. It's a viewable access only is what they would have. So again, other people outside of our group isn't going to be able to mess with it, but all of you, we've given permissions to do it. So yeah, please, if you're going to access it, make sure you're doing it through your Towing Task Force email. That's important because that's where we gave the permissions. So just make sure you're doing it that way. But yeah, it's here and it's ready for people to weigh in and make comments about different things. It's all here available. And again, these are our current rates as of right now. So again, it's just these 2 pages. We kind of tried to make it as straightforward as possible. I know on our rate sheet that you get through the towing industry, it's like on our header and all of that. We got rid of all that and just the numbers. So anyway, but yeah, feel free to go in here, as you like. And if you want to make comments or, provide any additional feedback on the current structure, whether it's the structure itself or the specific prices, whatever you want to talk about, it's here for you. So just wanted to share that. Okay. All right. So I think we can go ahead and I think that's the end of our more specific agenda. I think we're still sitting. Hold on a second. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yeah, we still only have 6 members in attendance, so we don't quite have a quorum. We'd need 8 for a quorum, so we're a couple short. I was hoping we'd get to it today to approve some of these older meeting minutes, but haven't quite got there yet. So we'll see what happens next month. Again, we'll schedule our next meeting for August. But before we talk about how we want to schedule that after skipping July, let's just go ahead and move on. Our last item on the agenda, at least for our discussion purposes, is open discussion. So we talked about the rate sheet, talked about the House bill and how it applies to us, talked about a little bit, at least, about the future meeting schedule. We covered our administrative items. So yeah, open discussion is next on the list. So anything anybody wants to talk about. And I don't think we had anybody sign up for public comment today. So that might be an empty point on the agenda as well if nobody's here. But yeah, it's open discussion. So anything anybody wants to chat about. And Mr. Padilla, feel free to jump in if you want us to provide a little bit of whatever you're looking for. If you just want to learn more about us or whatever you're interested in. We want to catch you up to speed. So, if you have any specific questions, please ask.
Not at this time. I'm just going to absorb a lot, but I appreciate it.
Well, yeah, like I said, I encourage you to look at that website that I just showed you. And again, I linked it directly there in the chat, so you should be able to find it pretty easily. But yeah, you can fish around in there and just kind of look at what's there. Again, there's a whole bunch of meeting recordings, agenda, minutes. Our report from back in 2022 is on there. There's plenty to look at there. So yeah, feel free to absorb over these next couple months before our next meeting.
Sounds good.
Great. All right, we're still in open discussion, so definitely open to anything anyone wants to talk about. Yeah, Ms. Henson, go ahead.
I just do have one question. When that bill passes, when it goes actually into law, do they send something out to all the towing carriers to notify us what affects us in the towing industry specifically? I know it's I've read through it multiple times and I don't see a ton changing. So I'm just trying to make sure that I'm following what the bill is passing that makes it different in my industry.
Yeah, just so everybody knows, I think what the PUC was planning to do was when we get a little closer to the trigger date for those statutes, and again, that should happen sometime in early August, so we're not all that far away, definitely less than 2 months, I would say, if I had to guess. Like I said, I still haven't heard the exact date that the statutes trigger. I had one the last time back in 2022. Which was August 10th. So that was clear. We knew, a considerable amount ahead of time. I haven't heard the definitive date yet. But once we have that, then I'm guessing preferably a few months before those statutes trigger. I think what the PUC wants to do is essentially schedule like a big stakeholder meeting. We did something similar back in late 2022, and we did it kind of under the premise of the red line for the rulemaking. So once we had that ready, which again, for the last time, it took a lot longer to put that together. I don't think it'll take as long this year because, like you said, I don't think as much is changing this time around than it was 2 years ago. But essentially, what we did was we scheduled a meeting. It was in December. And it was I think it ended up being like a 3-hour meeting. I personally ran it. And basically what we did was we went through the current rules and kind of explained to people what we were changing. So kind of people could one, understand what the legislation and the new statutes was doing and its corresponding impact on the PUC's rules, which we had to change as a result of those statutory changes. And a lot of people asked questions and kind of elaborated in certain places on, how certain things were going to be enforced and all of that. I think the PUC would like to do something similar again this time, but again, do it in a more truncated timeline because in that instance, we had that meeting a good 5 or 6 months after the statute's triggered. Whereas in this case, I think we want to do it before the statute's triggered. So I think that'll be a lot more helpful. And again, since there's less content on what's changing, it should be easier for us to shoot for that goal, to have that meeting and kind of walk through exactly what's changing, how it's going to be enforced at the statutory level. Because again, kind of similar to what we dealt with 2 years ago, where essentially the statute's triggered, but our rules hadn't changed yet. We essentially had this long extended period where we essentially had to enforce the statutes because there were no corresponding rules we could use because they hadn't been updated yet. So it'll be the same thing this year, but I don't think it'll be quite as impactful as 2 years ago, just because one, not as much is changing, and two, we're trying to be a lot more proactive this time around. And so, yeah, that's the plan, is to have that meeting, walk through, and again, encourage everybody to participate. We'll send out an email to every active towing carrier on our lists. So we'll email everybody, tell them, okay, this is when the meeting's happening, encourage you to attend, and we'll do it that way. And again, encourage everybody to participate, all the towing carriers to come. I think when we did that thing 2 years ago in December, I think we had like 50 people show up. But we have like 700 plus towing carriers. So we definitely encourage people to show up, but I mean, can't really make them. So, but anyway, yeah, that's the plan. And hopefully it will be not just reviewing the legislation, but also hopefully the PUC will be in a position to explain how the rules are changing as well. That's the goal. So anyway, that's kind of our plan. Does that sound okay to you? I mean, do you think there's maybe a better way to go about it, Ms. Henson?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. It's just, I just want to make sure that, I know back when it changed the first time, like you're talking about, is everybody was in an uproar. Nobody knew what was going on. It was hard to find answers. People were worried they were doing the wrong things, me included. Everybody was kind of just walking in the dark. Nobody knew exactly what. And then everybody was asking me, because I do a lot of non-essential towing, but I was, reading law and asking questions. I was asking the TRPC. I also belong to that too. And so I was asking them. They didn't have a ton of questions either, or a ton of answers either. So it was kind of, I was just hoping that they would like send out an email and highlight, like maybe in red of the bill of what is changing and we need to do. Like, I'm not seeing a ton that's changing besides like, signs being in different languages or just different things like that. I'm not seeing a whole lot. But if they give us time, because if it is those kind of things, we do have to make signs. We do have to change some things that we're doing that takes being in line with companies that have to produce things like signs and things like that. So if maybe a mass email of this is going to be changing. This is the things that you need to be working on to get to this point in a month where it's going to be, law and effective. Sure.
Yeah. And, to be fair, we are, some of the people on my team were meeting with our legal team, I think tomorrow. We are represented both at the commission level and the staff level by the Attorney General's office. So we have a dedicated team of attorneys that help us with a variety of different business that we do. And so, when it comes to, the implementation of certain legislation, especially when a rulemaking is involved, we almost always have legal consultation. And so I think our plan is to just solidify our understanding of this past legislation and how it can be properly implemented. And then at that time, once we're a little settled on those issues, then I think we can dive into that implementation. And again, that includes drafting up a red line of what rules need to change to, bring them into congruence with the new legislation and all of that. So anyway, we're moving on it. Yeah, it's we're trying to be a lot more proactive this time than we were 2 years ago, because last year it was just 2 years ago it was just there was a lot of changes that needed to work. And again, there was a lot of overlays to it, more than people thought at first glance. And so it took us six months, I think, to draft that red line because of how complex it was. And so, it took a lot, and hundreds of hours went into that. And so I think we should be a lot more efficient this time around, because again, it's not quite the bombshell legislation that 2 years ago was. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the comment. Appreciate that. Any other thoughts, comments, ideas?
Are you a member of the association? The towing association?
Ms. Henson, I think that's for you.
Yeah, sorry.
Of the TRPC, yes.
Actually, they should have some of those answers out. There was some things that that happened at the last board meeting that should have went out.
Yeah, and the PUC tries to work with TRPC. We're involved with them, to make sure we can get this information out when we have it. I think sometimes, we provide them with, information that they can put like in their newsletter, or, they're really good at helping us get the word out on certain things. So we like to work and partner with them on certain things.
I haven't seen anything from them for a while, so maybe I need to reach out to them and see if they are still emailing or not. I haven't heard for a while, but I am a member, yes.
Okay. I'll find out why she's not communicating that.
And it kind of goes through here anyways, Kim through Dan's Towing
Kim.
always kind of refers everything to me, and she'll get the emails and then shoot it to me. But I know she's been out of town a lot, and she's kind of getting out of the industry a little by little. So she might not be as involved as she used to be. So she might not be shooting them over like she used to. So maybe I need to get a different contact through the TRPC that can actually just email them direct.
Yeah, you can in the TRPC, you can she's your chapter president out there in Junction.
Mhm.
But anybody's welcome to board meetings and any meetings around the state. So if you're a member, you're allowed to come to any meeting.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. And again, we at the PUC, we really try to get information out as best we can. We usually do multiple email blasts to all our towing carriers, and not just for towing, in a lot of our different industries. We'll send out blast emails about, trainings we're having, or, for the towing industry, we had 3 different towing related training seminars late last year. It was like October, November, and December. So we sent blast emails out about that, really, and tried to encourage participation. We're constantly restructuring the website to make sure people understand, both at the consumer and the towing, and stakeholder levels. So, we're always looking for ways to improve communication, and always open to new ideas for that as well. But yeah, I think, we're on the verge of putting together some really good campaigns of information for different industries that we regulate. So we'll definitely, we're working on that kind of behind the scenes, but hopefully we'll see some fruition to that soon.
I think you just had a training 3 weeks ago. May.
Yeah, it was the 20th. Yeah.
20th? Yeah.
20th? I think it was the 20th.
Yeah, May 20th.
The PUC likes to send representatives to TRPC, the TRPC biannual trainings. So usually there's one in the spring, one in the fall. We just did our most recent one just a few weeks ago on May 20th. And again, when it's possible, we like to record stuff and put it up on the website just for later, just for people who maybe aren't able to attend. You can go on there and find trainings and all sorts of cool stuff. So again, I just encourage everybody to use the website, just like we do for our group at Towing Task Force. The PUC really works hard to make sure that our websites are good and functional and helpful, and have a lot of good resources and help available. So and you can always call the PUC too as well if you just want to talk to somebody. So all right, any other thoughts before we break for the day? Well, I definitely appreciate those of you that are here. Again, I do think these are good conversations to have. Definitely anticipating some good work from us in the back half of the year. Again, we will go ahead and skip our regular meeting for July, as we discussed earlier in this meeting, and a little bit in last month's meeting as well. So we'll give everybody a bit of the summer break that everybody probably very much deserves. And so let's go ahead and, again, in lieu of any other idea someone else might have, if we stick on our regular schedule, that would put us put our next meeting on the 14th of August. Again, I don't mind doing sticking to that hour-and-a-half schedule, so 2 to 3:30, just like today was. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Do we want to just stick to that for now? Maybe mull it over the next couple months on how we might want to restructure these meetings, or make them a little more efficient or effective. Again, different dates, different times. Definitely open up to all that. But again, if we stick with our current schedule, yeah, that would put us on track for August 14th, 2 to 3:30.
I'm good with that.
Any other thoughts on that? Officer Pronsky, Ms. Rusha, Ms. Henson?
Works for me.
Sounds good.
Okay, Mr. Padilla, okay. All right. Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and
Mute button. I was also saying it was okay. I don't mean to interrupt. I didn't want you to think.
no, that's fine. That's fine. Thanks, Mr. Richard. I appreciate it. All right, let me go ahead and just mark the calendar right now. We'll still send the invite out for it probably before the end of the week. Hadija, if you can make a note of that. So our next meeting will be August 14th, 2 to 3:30. I went ahead and just marked my calendar as well for that. So we'll make sure and get that invite out here soon. We'll still send out, our typical reminders. Since we're not meeting in July, we might send out 2, like maybe 1 2 weeks out and 1 a week out. Yeah, definitely encourage everybody to come and have these conversations and keep working towards some positive things. So, all right. Well, thank you everybody for attending. We'll go ahead and break. It's about 3:06 p.m. and we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thanks everybody for being here and participating, and we'll see you on August 14th. Take care, everybody. Have a good summer.
See y'all.
Thank you.
Bye.